Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 7th. Ms. Hilbrick, will you please call roll?
Councilman De La Garza?
I am present.
Mayor Pro Tem Solis?
Here.
Councilman Crocker?
Here.
Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Councilman Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
Here.
And Mayor Bachnight.
Here. Everybody, please join me for the pledges and then followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
The Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Again, welcome to everybody. I want to say special welcome to our state representative, Jeannie Morrison. She's here with her chief of staff, Jason, and I'm sorry, Jason, I can't remember your last name, but welcome. We're glad y'all are here. And with that, Mr. Garza, do you have any announcements and reminders?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to remind you that we do have a work session or workshop this Friday at 1 p.m. at the Community Center. And we did post that agenda today. And we will be sending out some reading materials for you tomorrow. So hopefully we have a good discussion on the CIP and other topics. Also, I want to take this moment to thank all of the employees that played a role in the tree lighting ceremony and the parade this past weekend. I do want to send a special shout out to the communications team. The production crew, they're pictured here because they accomplished a pretty amazing feat by this Saturday's live streaming of the parade being the first time that we're able to do that on Facebook and on our TV channel. And so that's an amazing feat. Kudos to Ashley and her team. There's some folks from IT. I'll tell you who they are. Sam, you know Sam. George, two Georges, IT George and Communications George, Krista Euchre, Lauren Moe, Cheryl, Daryl. Look at that suit, Daryl. Amazing. Shane, Ashley, Maddie, Joel, and James. And the tall guy on the right in the back is Chris Thompson, who's with the fire department, because we did include drone footage. And so he is the fire department drone guy. So they did an amazing job this weekend. And so I want to congratulate them and give them a round of applause, if you don't mind, for their amazing work.
Yeah, I just want to echo the same thing. They did a fantastic job. Everybody that I spoke to really loved both events. Such a big change from last year, and it was get back to all that in person, and the crowds were fantastic, and it's good to see all the smiles.
Absolutely. I agree.
Do you have any further announcements?
No, sir.
Okay. Public and employee
Oh,
recognition. Yep.
yeah, that's coming up. Somebody said KVB there in the back. So yes, KVB, sorry. I do want to ask Krista Euchre to come up and present our recognition for the month.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you again. We are here for our December Beautification Award winner, and I have Meredith Bird, our Keep Victoria Beautiful chairperson and the chair of the Beautification Committee.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. If you travel by the corner of Main and Rio Grande on a regular basis, then you've probably noticed the complete transformation of the old railroad depot there on the corner. Joe and Brandy Bratton have created a home, a thriving business, an urban farm, and an event venue out of that former railroad depot, complete with productive fruit and vegetable gardens, lovely sitting areas. The entire property is just nothing short of gorgeous. And so with that, Keep Victoria Beautiful is proud to recognize Cryo Depot and Joe and Brandy Bratton as our December Beautification Award winners. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
you.
All right. Any items from council tonight?
I just want to pull D2, please.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else? All right, we'll close items from council and go into citizens' communication. We have one green card tonight from Mr. Vonderau.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to thank the Victoria Police Department for their security at the parade. Officer kept me from getting in an accident. I was driving the wrong way down Bridge Street, looking for a parking spot and didn't even know it, you know. I thought the police was driving the wrong way. I didn't know it was me. But I would also like to thank the police for is Detective Soto and Detective Garcia for the work they did in the trailer park. They've arrested two alleged drug dealers. One of the alleged drug dealers, he got 5 years deferred adjudication for tampering with evidence. And the other got 4 years in the state jail. And they also arrested someone who tried to strangle his daughter, and he got 100 days in jail. I said 100 years, I wish, you know. And they've also arrested other people for possession group 1 drugs, and they eventually plea bargained and got him for forgery. But there's a lot of criminal activity in the trailer park, and the landlord is written to alleged drug dealers, and it does make it not a safe place to live. And just want to thank everybody for listening and for the hard work everyone's done. Thanks. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
And ma'am, too.
And have a Merry Christmas, Michael. That's it for the citizens' communication. So items with public hearings, item C1.
Item C1 is an ordinance designating 210.9 acres within the jurisdiction of the City of Victoria as a Tax Increment Financing District to be known as Reinvestment Zone Number One, City of Victoria, Texas.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. We don't have a long presentation for this. I do just want to make a couple of points associated with this effort. First off, I want to introduce Travis James, who's with TXP. He's been our consultant all along in this process, so if you have any answer or questions that I can't answer, I'll obviously dodge them off to him. But in any case, I do want to just briefly remind everybody that this is not a tax increase, and all it does, it simply sets aside future dollars that would come in thanks to property value growth, and we would intentionally set that aside for purposes of downtown. We've said, and I've said publicly, that the intent behind this fund would be to supplement our Main Street operations, do some small-scale CIP projects, and continue our effort in offering grant opportunities downtown to help its revitalization. Where we are in the process is that through this ordinance, we're officially proposing creating the TERS. Tonight also serves as the official public hearing as outlined and required through the TERS legislation in the state. The ordinance that's before you today as a first reading officially designates the creation of a board being of 7 members. Ultimately, once the second and third reading pass for this ordinance, only then would we be able to then enter into interlocal agreements with the different partners that would want to join the TERS, because obviously the TERS has to exist for somebody to join it. And the intent is that each of those entities that chooses to join have 1 member on this 7-member board, and whatever the balance is would be up to the city to appoint. That's the way that we're recommending approaching that aspect of it. The ordinance creates the TERS for a period of 25 years, as we've shared in the past. This is a reminder of what the geographic boundary would look like. If it's throwing you off, the fact that the caption on the agenda mentions 210 acres when over all these meetings I've talked about 140, it's because the 210 includes acreage for public right-of-way and streets. And obviously this 139 is only inclusive of actual private taxable property. And that's it. As you know, we've been working with the Port, Victoria College, and the county to potentially join this TERS once it's adopted. And that's a process that will be ongoing through December and January. And ultimately, we hope to finalize in the spring, and at that point, we would shift our focus to the implementation aspect of this. It would generally take 2 or 3 years for us to see some return on the TERS, so this is a marathon, not a sprint. But we definitely believe this is a step in the right direction to help us have another tool in the toolbox to help us with the redevelopment of downtown per the downtown master plan, which, as I've said, is the community's downtown master plan. And so we're excited about that. So happy to answer any questions you might have. And
One question I had was, I think the resolution says a board up to 7 members. At what point do we decide how many exactly are going to be on that board? Is it dependent on how many of our other governmental entities join, or where do we make that decision?
yeah, I think the intent is for it to be a 7-member board, not an up to. So maybe we need to clarify the language if that helps. But our intent, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, was for it to be a 7-member board. And if we have the other 3 entities participate, they would carry 3, we would have 4. If we only have 2 out of the 3, then that just means we'd have 5, is the way that I understand it.
Yes, sir. That's the intention of it. The up to is a little bit misleading. I agree with you on that point. When I was drafting that language, I was considering the fact that some of those positions might be vacant occasionally, and it didn't occur to me that that might be misleading. If you'd like to amend that for clarity purposes, that would be fine.
No, I'm fine with it. I think until we know who all's in or out, it makes sense to leave it like that for now. Thank
Right,
you.
just to be clear, by Travis James, again with TXP, by state law, you have to have a minimum of 5 board members. And we could have up to 3 additional entities join. So you all, if we go up to 7, you all would have 4 seats. Each of those entities would have 1 for a total of 7. If nobody else joined, 5's easier to appoint than 7. So we were trying to strike the balance between up to 7. You have to have a minimum of 5 by state law. If those entities joined but choose not to appoint someone, you would appoint someone on their behalf.
And to also clarify a question that I received pre-meeting on when do we actually appoint people, the ordinance creates the board. And so typically shortly after final reading, we would have a separate agenda item for discussion on board appointments. So that would come after that.
Being persnickety on details, and with what you just said, that we had to have a minimum of 5, does this need to state that the board would consist of no less than 5?
It doesn't have to,
Because-
but obviously if council feels more comfortable having that level of specificity listed, we can certainly amend it and incorporate it.
If state law calls for it, then that seems like that should be enough, but I'm just wondering if it has to be in there because of that.
Ma'am, your statement that state law requires it is enough. That's the way I considered it as well, that we don't need to state that we will have a minimum of, because obviously we're going to comply with state law and we will make sure that we appoint the minimum number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Garza or Mr. James or Mr. Goosh? No. All right, at this time, I'd like to open item C1's public hearing. All those wishing to speak on the item, please come forward. Seeing no one jump up out of their seats tonight, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And yes, sir.
And actually, I should have mentioned that we did have a very successful public meeting last week. We had roughly 20 to 25 members that showed up, community members that showed up to the meeting. And so even though we don't have any members of the public, in tonight's setting of a public hearing, we did have a successful public meeting with the public and some of the stakeholders last week. And they had really good questions, very supportive of our efforts to revitalize downtown. And so that was good feedback that came from that meeting.
Thank y'all for holding that.
I think it's a great tool to move the downtown master plan forward. I'm 100% behind it. I think it's a great idea.
Great.
I'd
Okay.
like to make a motion that we approve item C1.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Just want to thank Mr. James for leading us through this, and
Thank you.
great presentations on all of it. It's very well spelled out, and I think any confusion that might have been on the front end's been answered, and I really appreciate all the effort that's gone into this. So with that, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Consent agenda.
Item D1 is the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting held on November 16th, 2021. Item D3 is a resolution approving the first contract renewal with Andrew Rodriguez, DBA, AJ Shredding for the mowing of Loop 463 in an amount not to exceed $56,000. Item D4 is a resolution approving the purchase of one 2021 Gradall XL 4100 wheeled excavator from ASCO Equipment in the amount of $498,563.57. Item D5 is a resolution approving the Texas Commission on Environmental Control Rider 7 grant contract in the amount of $281,250. Item D6 is a resolution approving a contract with LJ Power Incorporated to replace the 700 Main Center emergency generator in the amount of $84,960. And item D7 is a resolution approving the first amendment to the first renewal of the professional services agreement with Wood Environmental and Infrastructure Incorporated for air quality monitoring and consulting in an amount not to exceed $256,000.
Thank you.
I move we accept consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, item D2.
Item D2 is an ordinance amending the 2021-2022 budget of the City of Victoria and carrying forward encumbrances outstanding at September 30th, 2021, and this is on second and third reading.
I just had a question on the difference in all the numbers. The budget amendment is for $7,887,588.70, and then the actual figures totaled $7,895,088.70. On the last item, you was missing the $17,500 for Boot Fest, and on the $2,067,385.24, it was missing $9,173.38. So I'm just wondering, how important is it that all the numbers jive?
Right. The attachment with the POs, that Boot Fest contract was something that was brought to my attention late, that did not need to be carried over. So it was removed from the amendment amount. And then on the construction fund, that $2 million you had mentioned, there's $9,000 difference there. There was an invoice we received late that was for September that had to reduce the amount that was actually carried over. So the list of POs is something I can update and provide y'all with an update of accurate numbers that will match up with the amount in the agenda item.
The total amount is accurate, though.
Correct. Right.
The $78,77,588.70?
The amount that's in the memo,
There's two numbers.
They don't jive.
One's 7.877 million, and one's, the grand total on the bottom of that, 7.868 million.
the 7.868 million should be, I'll go back and verify it to be sure. I apologize for that. I didn't realize there was an error.
That's my questions.
Okay.
And then the carryover amount doesn't match either one of those. Okay.
Is there any,
So
can we put it on hold till the next time, till Tuesday? Still,
I can have everything corrected.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that.
okay. So, does someone want to move to table it to the next meeting?
Anyway, I don't think we need to do that.
Don't need to?
I don't think there's been a motion to approve yet, has there?
No, there's nothing to approve.
Okay,
Yeah, so no action necessary.
okay.
Already posted Friday.
Great, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Goosh. All right, thank you, Ms. Solis, for pulling that one. Items E1.
Item E1 is a resolution approving an administrative services agreement with Sun Life Financial for 2022 stop-loss insurance in the amount of $655,268.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Tonight, we bring forth a recommendation for our 2022 stop-loss and a brief presentation on just the health fund in general as we go into plan year 2022. Tonight, I have John Sims, our team lead with Lockton here with me tonight. Traveled in from Houston. He said no traffic, so I'll believe him. And I also, any questions you might have that we can't answer as we go through the presentation, I'll lean on John to come in and address as well. On a side note, I just want to recognize John and say thank you for his partnership and leadership. John is moving on to retirement. And so we'll have a new account rep join us at the first of the year. And so thank you, John, for everything. Appreciate it. So it was truly a pleasure working with him and alongside him since we've been with Lockton since January of 2020. So tonight's stop loss recommendation is to move us to Sun Life, which provides us a 7% decrease from our current and our renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. A lot of this is described in the memo that was provided to you in your packet, as well as these presentations. Lockton shops, if you will, for stop loss every year for us and brings forward then the best deal that we can have. Currently with Blue Cross Blue Shield, they came back with a 0 increase on renewal, but that was still higher than what Sun Life was going to provide to us. And so that provides us about a $48,000 decrease with regards to our stop loss insurance at the same contract rates as we currently have. So as a reminder, our deductible is $175,000, and then our contract terms are that 24/17, which doesn't allow any gap of coverage with regards to our stop loss insurance. For those that might not be familiar with stop loss, it's an additional insurance plan that we have as part of our health plan that covers any additional cost outside of that $175 deductible. So if we have a pretty significant claim, then that extra liability, if you will be covered by our stop loss insurance and not hit the plan. So here is the chart that describes the shopping the market, so to speak, and all the players that provided us with a quote. And again, option 1, which is highlighted in the circles there, is what we're recommending to go with, which is Sun Life. And that would begin January 1 of 2022. Any questions? Not seeing any, so I'll move on and just wanted to give you a very quick recap, if you will, of the health fund. A little cheeky here, but we'll talk about the health of the health fund, if you'll allow us. So 2021 plan year recap, a lot was going on, thanks to, again, our partners with Lockton. We had no monthly premium increases for 2021, no plan design changes. We remained the 2 high deductible plans that we currently have. However, we did add a lot of value, we believe, to our benefit package for our employees. And so I've got a list there of all those different things that we provided, including offering a 1 times your annual base salary employer paid life insurance benefit to our employees. This year was a passive enrollment, meaning that we were not making any changes to the plan, nor were we raising premium increases again. So it was a passive enrollment. If employees didn't want to make any changes, then they just carried over what they had for 2021. So we, by all means, continue to want to add value to our benefit package and stay competitive. 2022, we're going to focus very heavily on prevention and wellness, with some plans kicking off some neat features in January, and then hopefully having that momentum throughout the plan year of 2022. We also are focusing on mental health. In 2021, we introduced Magellan, which was a robust employee assistance program. We really want to take advantage of that benefit. We even went out and included a first responder mental health program that we'll be bringing to our police and fire department that focused just strictly on first responder and their mental health. I want to make a point to say that we have not increased monthly premiums for 3 years now, so that's a positive in our health fund and positive for our employees. So we still have work to do, but we're heading in the right direction. And I think this last chart pretty much sums it up. We are definitely heading in the right direction with regards to our reserve months. As a reminder, we like to have a goal of having 12 months in that reserve. Fiscal year 22 projections is showing that we'll be at 7.3 in our reserve, as well as an ending working capital balance of that 3.9 million. So we are definitely heading in the right trend. So appreciate all your support. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you for your work on this. It's a very difficult whole thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Anybody like to make a motion?
I move we
Accept
adopt.
E1?
Got a motion and a second on item E1. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Item E2.
Item E2 is a resolution adopting the storm drainage master plan update.
Yes, we're here to make a final adoption of the master plan, the drainage master plan update. One thing that we found, thank you, Ms. Scott, was on page 19 of the presentation, we had put in there about the pro rata. It was a mistyping. And we need to say, instead of it saying on the pro rata shall the capacity, it should say share of the capacity. So that's one of the changes. Melvin is here. It's Melvin Spinks with Civil Corps, who was instrumental in preparing this
Civil
document.
Tech.
Thank you. Civil Tech. Thank you. And
I was about to
instrumental.
say, it's amazing what a few letters will change.
It does
And we've
change.
seen that twice now.
And I don't know if that's a insult or a compliment, but
It's a professional, how you doing thing. But he's here. If you would like to see the presentation again, we presented it to y'all September 4th, and he is here if you'd like to see it again.
I do recommend that he maybe run through a 10-minute just executive high-level overview of it, if you don't mind. All right.
Melvin, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jack. I mean, Ken.
I deserve that.
Mayor, council, members of council, good evening. Melvin Spinks, again with Civil Tech of Warper Company. Appreciate what we've been able to accomplish on the storm drainage master plan. First, let me really recognize the city staff and the work. They really came to the table over the last year. It's a lot of complicated issues when you talk about flooding and drainage. And so clearly their involvement for the last year was just splendid with us. So thank you for that. Do I have a clicker? Oh. So just to take you quick level highlights on what we talked about this past September was really there were 7 task items of the master plan. And what I will do is highlight a few of the particulars in each of these task items with you. The first, let's recognize that the adopted master plan is still your June 1999 plan. It was resubmitted in 2007, really from the work that was done on the drainage criteria manual. So our update is really just a add-on to the currently adopted storm drainage master plan. It's a series of projects within the current master plan. It includes regional detention basins, channel improvements, and storm sewer replacements. And the city over the last several years have been able to accomplish some of those projects that were outlined in that plan. As an example, the Lone Tree Detention Facility has been partially constructed for about 75% complete. And then there's been a few channel improvement projects, particularly along West Outfall and the Lone Tree Creek. What's important to note of that plan, it's based on $1999, which at that time, the total cost of all improvements was $170 million. In today's updated dollars, it's still a plan that represents about $293 million of improvements. We noted to you about the FEMA floodplain maps. As we're all aware, FEMA is going through an update of those maps today. And we understand they may be released here sometime in 2021. I will quickly just talk about a few of the high-level items here with you. One of the things that we focused on in this was looking at 45 undeveloped parcels within the city that represented about 1,300 acres. What we call independent study areas was really to aid the city and developers in developing parcels that had some drainage constraints. So with those 45 parcels, we developed 5 regional drainage solutions. We went through these in detail with you. What I'd like to do is pan through, but there were 5 particular projects identified in those regional plans. The Bueller Property Diversion Project, which was $280,625. The Project B, Shenandoah Ditch, cost of $3.7 million. Project C, the Anthony Road Outfall at a $1.6 million. Project D, Lone Tree Creek Outfall at a cost of $5.5 million. And then Project E, Craig Clegg Ditch outfall at a cost of 2.1 for a total cost of $13.2 million. I'm going to just flip through these photographs as they're a little difficult to see. Let me mention also that part of the deliverables is a hard copy of the report that's been given to the Public Works Director. Several copies are available. Clearly, we have it all digital as well, but sometimes it's easier to kind of see some of the hard copy figures. Another portion of the plan was really looking at the drainage criteria. As we mentioned to you the last time, rainfall in Texas has definitely been understood and better over the time period. The National Weather Service has shown that for the city of Victoria, what we used to understand as a rainfall of 11.5 inches for a 100-year event is now 13.4 inches. Today, we're recommending that the city of Victoria take that additional rainfall into account as you design your storm sewers and your drainage facilities within the city. In the criteria, there are also some additional changes that we're recommending. The most important one is a mandatory or permanent detention option. Clearly, most developments use detention today as a mechanism to make sure we don't aggravate any existing flooding. But it will be a recommendation to include permanent detention in projects. Now, we did proceed with several detention exemptions with you, particularly for redevelopment, as outlined on this particular slide here. Developments less than 1 acre and less than 65% impervious would be exempt from detention. Any low-density development, and then any development within the Guadalupe River or the lower reaches of Spring Creek. And these all have been vetted through with the city as well as the public. We are recommending a minimum detention rate, again, part of the plan and part of the technical work to aid the engineers in the city, making sure ponds have the level of capacity for mitigating their project developments. One of the things that we did do was an advanced look at the entire city's surface ponding. We ran a two-dimensional model. It's called a rain-on-grid model to allow to superimpose a 100-year rainfall, which again is 13.4 inches over the entire city. And that let us better understand where we had potential flooding and drainage problems areas. And that was confirmed with the Public Works Department as well as with the Fire Department. As you see on the image on the left, as you remember, those are your FEMA floodplains as mapped, but when you superimpose the 100-year flood with 13.5 inches, a lot more of the city streets certainly are affected by heavy rainfall. That's very common to your community as well as most communities in the state of Texas. We took a deep dive into understanding your storm sewer systems and the needs of cleaning those systems. We are recommending that several of the storm sewer systems be cleaned on an annual basis, as well as roadside ditches, and we have put those numbers together for you in the plan. We are also recommending some maintenance needs along your drainage channels. There are some repairs that are needed along the concrete line channels and some sedimentation removal. In all, when you take the entire plan, the updated cost items will amount to about $83.7 million. And I'll end with these. There are 7 recommendations that have been provided to council in the master plan update. Additional detailed studies is the first recommendation, particularly for developable watersheds such as Jim Branch and Mercado Creek. Recommendation number 2, a drainage maintenance program to ensure an annual cleaning of storm sewers and ditches. Recommendation number 3 is a channel repair program, also to replace concrete failures. Recommendation number 4 is to look at the adoption of those 6 regional plans. Recommendation number 5 is to adopt the new rainfall that's been provided by the National Weather Service in the Drainage Criteria Manual. And the last recommendation, number 6, is to continue to improve and fund some of the understanding of flood, during floods and after floods of the effects. So I'll end the presentation, and again, thank you, the city, as well as city staff.
Had one question on recommendation number 2, the price tag of $28.3 million. Is that annually?
So that is a total cost as we've identified today. So that's a total cost. That's not an annual cost.
We realistically, if we wanted to break down and establish a true maintenance program, we would obviously divide the city up and develop a strategy of how often we want these things taking place, right? This is a cost if we did it all at once, tomorrow.
I have a question on the higher number of rainfall in the 100-year flood to bring that in and adopt it. The implication of that, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that, is that then a developer would have to prepare for that amount of rain as opposed to the 11 inches. They would have to prepare for 13.
Yes, ma'am. In terms of the storm sewer costs, the rainfall is comparable to today's. You design your storm sewers for a 5-year level of service. So the 5-year rainfall is comparable between your current criteria and the new criteria. What it will affect is really the detention ponds, where you have to store more water, the 1.9 inches more water than the 11.4 inches.
Okay, thank you. At first, I was thinking about that in a different direction, so I appreciate that.
Yes.
Further questions? Thank you. Appreciate you being here this evening. We need a motion and a second to move forward.
Move for adoption of E2.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thoughts, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
I guess we should say thank you to the staff for all these master plans that they had going all at once, and they've all been presented well. I think I've understood them. That's probably dangerous to say, but thank you very much to you and to all the staff.
Well said, Mrs. Scott. That finishes off all the master plan.
For this year, yeah. It is, I do think we definitely feel a high sense of pride, and we feel very proud of the fact that we were able to push through in spite of a pandemic and going through all of these processes to get them done and completed this year. In retrospect, it was a lot, but I think we're going to be better for it, and I think you'll get a better sense of that on Friday when we talk about the CIP. Now that we have just much more information to discuss in our effort to diversify the CIP. And so I think it's a well worth exercise that we went through.
Thank you. On to item E3.
Item E3 is a resolution authorizing an application to FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities program in an approximate amount of $6 million for an aquifer storage and recovery project, committing the city's match requirement and identifying the source of funding for the match.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are in the process of applying for a grant to FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure. It's actually and communities. First of all, let me say I can't take a whole lot of credit for the content of this grant, even though I did actually submit it myself last Friday. I say in the process because it's coming from FEMA, but it's coming through the Texas Department of Emergency Management. So they're going to get it first, and then it will go on to FEMA by the end of the month. But we hired Arcadis to help us develop the content, and they were heroic over the last couple of weeks in getting the content developed. So really quickly, I just want to say the total requested is ending up at 6.33 million. The federal share is going to be 4.2. Our local share approximately 1.8. We're asking for 5% management costs. That's for our use for managing the grant. And This is where it's going to go, and it's on the same side as water tower number 4. And if you can picture, it's actually behind the Popeyes and the Verizon over there next to, on the same side as Walmart. And the red line shows the area of where the well will service. And the reason why that's important, I'm going to move on to the next one, is because we have one already in the southern pressure zone. So this one will now be in the northern pressure zone. So it's serving a completely different part of the city, but the other really important point there is that they can serve as backup for each other, which is something that came up when we had the winter freeze. So this is not only addressing our issues in terms of drought, but almost, a lot of our other water issues, this can still help with that. And so this well is going to draw from, I guess we'll draw and replenish water from the, how do you pronounce that, Chicote? The Chicote and Evangeline aquifers?
Yes, Evangeline.
Okay. And I wanted to be quick on this, so that's all I have on that.
The only
Last
thing I'll
item of the night.
can you go back to the slide that shows the budget?
Yes.
I want to just clarify and make clear that currently we have $2.5 million budgeted for an ASR project out of the VS3C budget. And so what we're in essence suggesting is taking, a big portion of that 2.5 million and applying it towards this grant. So we're taking dollars that are already budgeted, they're already there, and leveraging them to do something greater, something better, something bigger. So no need to worry about where that match would come from if we get it. A comment on the 5% management cost. You may recall that we initiated growing the team under Katie thanks to the ARPA funds. But obviously we need to find a more long-term solution to keep that operation going, because I think we can all agree that having an intentional grant management department, office, whatever you want to call it, is in our best interest. And obviously as we get more grants, it's going to pay for itself. But it's important as we pursue these opportunities for us to start assessing ourselves a management fee so that we can, in that way, keep the office going, keep our personnel going, so that we don't have to then be dependent on our general fund or VS3C or any other source for that. That's the way that other communities, once they're up and running with these programs, that's how they pay for those operations, just charge it to the grant. And so this is a perfect example of us attempting to do that.
Any questions?
What's the number of that well, ma'am?
Well, number 4. Tower number 4. I did that the other day to Tiffany. I'm sorry, that's water tower number 4.
And the well?
Oh, I don't know.
It will be a new well.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they're drilling a new well.
The well would be the ASR well.
Okay.
So, can you explain to me why it matters north and south pressure zone? This water, if it was injected and pulled back out, would still have to be sent to the water treatment plant.
What this one does is actually it'll be treated water that we pump right down into the well, it's a recharge. We're going to recharge the aquifer, and basically it'll create a bubble and push the regular well, the underground water out. And as we push treated water down, then at the time we need that water, then we pull it out. Instead of pushing it down, we pull it out, and all we have to do is chlorinate it. So it's basically treated water, our system water, and we get to pull it out. And the good part is groundwater and our surface water, if you mix those two direct, there's constituents that'll give us taste and odor issues. With our treated water being in surface water down there, when we pull it back out, that's going to reduce that possibility of taste and odor. And remember, the ASR system, it's a long-term solution to give us additional water during times of drought. So this is a long-term project that's, ASR, we're looking at 10 wells.
And the geography matters because of the way that the system is designed now. You may recall that right now the way that we feed the water towers to the north is through one main line. And obviously we're funding, a redundant system so that there's a tie-in further up to help backfill, if you will, once we have depleted water source. And so if something were to happen to the infrastructure on the south side or to that main line, then we can pump straight into the system from the north side. And since that's where it begins and it gravity feeds all the way down, then that's the benefit, right?
Okay. Makes sense. Timing on this. So when do you expect to hear anything back?
As I understand it, it's going to be all the way to the end of '22 before we would have an answer on this one.
So anything we had previously planned for ASR, we're gonna have to hold off for another year on. Because
Anything
we don't have
related
the-
to this particular project, yes, you want to wait until, you find out if you get the grant and get the grant contract in place before you do, because they don't always cover pre-engineering or pre-work. They certainly don't fund pre-construction. But if there was something else, that would be something different.
I'm just talking about, we had already
Right.
budgeted 2.2.
Yeah. We can have that conversation on Friday.
Did you just say there would be 10 ASR wells when all was done?
I did not.
Okay.
I did.
What was the 10?
The ultimate plan, when we started the ASR discussion, is to have 10 wells throughout the city. Again, it's a long-term, it's not something we need right away, but it's a long-term goal to build our additional water capacity, our water supply, instead of just relying solely on the river. And it's a recovery system that has been really vetted through across the country. A lot of other states, cities, San Antonio is doing it, other places are doing it. It's a great way to capture the water that's just flowing down the river and then be able to reuse it during the times there isn't any water.
And are the capacities, because I know in the memo you referred to water well 19, retrofitting that into an ASR well, are the capacities similar among each of these wells, or are there other factors that play into that?
They're going to be similar, but this one will be, since it's a complete new well and not a retrofit, it is going to be a much better situation to be able to pump that water downhole. There's no doubt. And that's one of the reasons we want to go to new wells instead of trying to retrofit an older one.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Halapaska would be happy.
I was
Get
just
this
thinking
grant.
that the experiment worked, and so now we can go
Yes.
full speed ahead.
Keep our fingers crossed for the grant. Entertain a motion
Except item
second.
E3.
in a second.
Second.
All right, motion in a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That does it for,
Thank you.
thank you. That does it for all our action items. Any city manager reports? Any executive session?
Nope.
Meeting's adjourned.
Get ready for Friday, though.
We gotta save our energy.